identity in the self and how it plays a role in consumer behavior. What can marketers do knowing the issues that we have with our self-concept? So we'll talk about self-concept a lot. And we'll have a few discussion questions alongside with it. Who has their blurbs today? Who has something to share? Well, maybe by the end of the class you can find something to share online, right? Something of interest you can find. Okay, let's get into it. What are we going to learn about how self-concept strongly influences consumer behavior, how consumption choices are expression of our identities, an extension of ourselves, and summarize how consumers are finding new ways to express identity via consumption choices. Right? Think of everything we purchase really can be described as something that's an expression of who we are. It's either our real selves, more of an approximation of who we truly are, or maybe we buy things for our ideal selves. We buy things for the person that we're trying to become. We think we're this person, but we may not be that person, right? And then also too, if we feel that we're less than that person, that we have a less approximation than our true selves, we kind of call that low self-esteem, right? We probably all sort of go on YouTube and look on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for personal development. Maybe we follow somebody on their podcast, right? We're always maybe listening to things that help us achieve a better sense of who we are, trying to resolve some issues, right? Big business, big time business, helping people self-develop or personal development. And then next we'll recognize many sociocultural factors that contribute to gender identity. We're talking here about roles, right? What role do we play in society, in our family, in our community, and who do we think we are based on those roles? And lastly, how our bodies are an important component of our identity. Self-concept. What do we mean by self-concept? What do you think self-concept is? And where does it start? Where does your self-concept begin? Right? We do studies in psychology where we place a giant mirror in the wild, kind of an unbreakable mirror in the wild with gorillas. Right? Gorilla will run past the mirror at first and think it's another gorilla, right? A threat. They'll sort of look at it, peek at it, and run away. Look at it, peek at it, run away. Maybe try to smash it and hit it. He thinks it. After maybe about 20, 30 tries, the gorilla stops, slows down, and gets curious enough to poke at the mirror, right? After maybe about 20 tries past that, the gorilla says, interesting. That gorilla is actually me. There's a me. There's an I. Which goes to show you that gorillas have some sort of consciousness, right? Well, maybe we can talk about what consciousness is. All right, and so maybe beyond that point, the gorilla starts to manipulate things. Maybe play with, the other person he sees in the mirror, which is him, right? Gets fascinated about what he can do, what he can't do, facial expressions, et cetera, et cetera. No different than us. As children, we have this phenomenon where eventually we start to see a reflection. Right, the old story in Greek mythology is that Narcissus, where we get the word narcissism from, saw his reflection in the water, thus he fell in love with himself. Right? We recognize that there was a him. Same happens with us as children. We finally start to recognize that there is an us, beyond just the feedback that we receive from people. Hey, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're blah, blah, blah. But you may start to recognize having some sort of viewpoint of yourself. Beyond that, we say, well, idealistically, can we be more awesome? Can we be even greater than that self that we think we are? There's a measurement we have in our mind of who we think we are, our capabilities, our characteristics. And then we think that we can go beyond that. That's what we call our ideal self. So ultimately, students thinking that one day we can achieve something, that we can finally accomplish actually meeting the ideal self. You're like, oh, I have the education, I got the job, I got the car, I can travel the world, I'm successful, I start a business, start a family, yada, yada, yada. Right? In our minds, we may think that's where I would like to go, to my ideal self. But in the meantime, we gotta grapple with the real self, right? So that self-concept, becoming consciously aware, and it influences our behavior. Because we say we all think that we're an I, and according to that I, we will dress like that I. We will buy the car that we think that that I should buy. We buy the laptop and decorate the laptop according to that I that expresses who we are. We put stickers on our laptops according to some sort of communication or expression that we want to give to the world about who we are. Right? We think there's something there. So it's big business. It influences everything. On a side note, what's consciousness?
What you're aware of?
So it's consciousness awareness?
I would say so, because
Okay.
there's subconsciousness, and I feel like that's what we're unaware of, like when we sleep,
Awareness that of what?
of our environment around us and about the people around us, like how we see other people behave and how we understand ourselves.
So maybe consciousness is some form of thinking or attention that we give to certain things.
I would say so.
Are you aware of this total environment that you're in right now?
Yes.
How much?
I would say like 100%.
100?
Like I know I'm in school and I'm in a chair and there's people around me and I'm hearing the sounds outside and I'm hearing the sound of your voice and I'm seeing the things on the board and I feel like that's like being 100% aware. And maybe
Yeah.
that's a little different.
Great. Anyone else? Have a different perspective on consciousness? Great debate of consciousness.
From that viewpoint, or just like an overall?
Overall.
I think she explained it pretty well.
All right, think of this. You're driving down the road coming to school on the 290. Are you conscious while you drive? And if so, how much? Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just feel like it depends on the person because when I haven't driven in like 4 years or something, like I don't have my license, but the people who are learning how to drive are more conscious of the environment around them because they're learning how to do it. But some people just be driving and like some people like they're talking, they're like, oh my god, I missed my route or whatever they call it, like my exit, because they're so like unconscious of like that they're driving because it's a natural thing. Like the same way like we wake up in the morning, like that's natural, you know. You wake up, you're conscious, like oh, I'm up, you know.
Interesting. So, hey, you know, consciousness is complex. We don't fully understand it, right? We understand it to a degree. We think it involves multidimensional things. One, it involves attention. So even though you are attentive to this environment, right now, you say you're conscious of it, but you may have a selective attention of what you're focused on, right?
That is very true.
There's other things. If you're driving down the road and you've driven down there 100 times, you're unconscious probably 98% of it, until something deviates from the
Like a
norm.
car crash or something.
Right? So we say unconscious mind is probably 90%. Think of unconscious mind means it requires no thinking. Conscious mind requires thinking, effort, attention, etc., etc. We would say consciousness is, what is the redness of red? How do we know red?
What? You say that's consciousness?
Yeah. How do we know
I feel like
red?
that's-
What is the saltiness of salt? How do we know salt? Fully, that's what consciousness is identifying a thing within itself. Now, we look at a bunch of ants on an anthill and we see them all doing the same stuff. And then we see one little ant to be like, hey, you know what? Man, forget get this, I'm not doing this work, building on anthill. I'm gonna go live my best life as an ant,
And
right?
find myself a
And
solution.
go off. We rarely see that in natural environments. We do see it in other maybe mammals, right? Elephants get depressed even when it's years past some sort of traumatic events. We see the gorilla with the mirror sort of test, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I kind of deviated off topic, but I just wanted to kind of get consciousness does correlate with our self-concept, how aware we are of ourselves, how realistic we are of ourselves, of our real selves, not the one we're trying to become. All right, so we say self-concept and self-esteem. Self-concept, beliefs, right? So we say these are beliefs a person holds about their own attributes and how they evaluate themselves on these qualities. How you go about evaluating yourself on your capabilities, about who you are, how great you think you are, how not great you think you are, et cetera, et cetera. Identity, each element that contributes to our self-concept. So we have a multitude of identities, right? Think of just cultural identities. You know, I ask you, hey, what's your ethnicity? You'll give me one, or a few. What religion are you? Will you give me one? You're like, oh, that's very important to my identity, my religious beliefs, my spiritual life. I'd be like, hey, what's your race? You give me one. You're like, yeah, that's part of who I am. All sorts of things, sexual orientation, your age, right? All these different things that contribute. It contributes to your self-concept, the person you think that you are. And then self-esteem is the positivity of a person's self-concept. How positive or negative you are in terms of you identifying your self-concept. Some people, you talk to them and they speak very negative about themselves, right? Like, I don't know how that helps, right? If you don't sort of feel great about yourself, nobody else can, I guess.
Alright, I wanted to ask this in the beginning before you even started lecturing. Do you think that people know who they are when they're younger, like, and we're not aware of it, or we don't want to be aware of who we are?
Yeah, I think it really depends, right? We say nature, nurture, right? A little bit of genes, a little bit of environment, but environment is usually a big factor when it comes to genes. Right, because for example, you could say, hey, mom and dad, very negative. I grew up with a negative mom, a negative dad. And so that environment probably fosters you to behave the same, right? Because the environment is tackle. But then there's other maybe children they have that like, nah, I'm very positive. Forget what mom and dad were talking about. I totally rejected that notion that they were trying to present onto me. Right? We have things like epigenetics, which means if you have a gene for it, it may not be turned on. It can be turned on in some sort of environmental circumstance. I said I had a schizophrenia sister. She didn't turn schizophrenic, she was like 50. She had a gene because her dad, like, we're half brothers and sisters, but her dad had it. But we say something happens, it turns on that gene. You could live your whole life and not have the gene express itself. Right? So it gets a little tricky. I say it really kind of depends on the environment and some other, other factors. But it could be genetic. You could have the genes of a person who's extremely confident. That you know, be slightly narcissistic or confident or healthy confidence or something. Self-esteem, the positivity of a person's self-concept. People with low self-esteem expect that they will not perform very well, and they will try to avoid embarrassment, failure, and rejection. So some products promise to give our self-esteem a boost. Right? What are some products you could think of that build on a person's self-esteem? What are some products or services out there you think builds on self-esteem? Yes.
Like anything kind of advertised, like if we take like fitness class or like anything like join a gym, that's all boost themselves.
Yeah, you're like, hey, body image is huge. Like if you look great, you might feel great, right? So like like a gymnasium or a fitness center, something else like that.
I would say makeup products, like for your face, that's like a big thing, I feel.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I would like to enhance my features with this. I may not look the greatest yet, but when you throw some makeup on, right, I could look wonderful, right? For men, we'd say maybe hairstyles, haircuts, et cetera, right? Want a nice fresh cut, line yourself up, shave the beard, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe books, right? So I always say there's a ton of books, self-help books, helping people develop themselves. Podcasts, yes, Tim.
It's the Snickers campaign of "You're not you when you're hungry."
Oh my
I feel
God.
like that kind of leans into it. Like, you'll have this, you'll feel better.
Yeah, Snickers is like, hey, you feel like you got low self-esteem because you got low blood sugar. Let us raise your blood sugar and make you feel great about it. Right? Essentially, is what they say. Right? Feel great. Eat a Snickers. Get some protein and some raise your glucose levels. Right? All sorts of things. Here we're talking orbit. Right? Grab confidence by the pack. I don't know. How does this sort of ad right here boost confidence? What do you think? What do you see here?
When I see that, I think about like interviews and like talking to people. You want your like breath to smell good when you're communicating with people. So
Yeah.
it would be good.
You're like, hey, you know what? Confidence in speaking with people having a nice, fresh breath, right? No uncertainties, no thinking about it, you know? To give you confidence. Also too, maybe you're like, hey, the act of chewing gum relaxes you, true, right? Calms you, true. Hey, our ideal self, our conception of how we would like to be, right? We probably all are not extremely accurate to who we actually think we are versus, you know, in some way, the theory is that we're kind of just all actors in a play, right? And if we're actors in a play, we're trying to put on the best performance for these roles that we kind of live in, right? And we're kind of still getting more information from the script about a character we're supposed to play, right? As time goes on, we're like, oh, okay, well, in this scene, what would I do? All right, so we say, hey, you know what? How close are we? So when we appraise ourselves, evaluate ourselves, how close are we to it? Are we just living in our ideal self? All right, if that's the case, you can really examine your life and say, hey, you know, a lot of things don't work out for me. How come? I'm too idealistic. I am not realistic about who I am. Other people tell me exactly who I am. And the information is pretty uniform. It's not just from one person or one group. It's from a multitude of groups of people. They can't all be wrong, right? Then we got our actual selves, our more realistic appraisal of the qualities that we have. We know our limitations. We know our responses. We know our principles, our constitutions, and other stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have our avoidance selves. So we have to think, what are we trying to avoid? We might be trying to avoid becoming a loser. I don't want to be my loser self, right? We're like, hey, if a few things happen, I might potentially be my loser self. I don't want that, right? So let me keep doing what I need to do, which is upholding, even when we say like lifestyle, people think, hey, I live a certain lifestyle, I love this lifestyle. Hence, if that lifestyle goes away, that person experiences a whole shift in their self-concept, right? They gotta reimagine, reinvent themselves based on a new sort of lifestyle that they have. All right, so how can products help us with this? Products can help us reach ideal self. We can do that with clothes, a fancy watch, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a trip to Europe. Oh my gosh, I'm living my ideal self. I'm in Europe, I'm in Tahiti, Bora Bora, the Seychelles. I'm on a cruise in the Mediterranean. I go to Concordia, right? I go to Harvard, blah, 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 right? We have things that, products, right, or services that we can have to kind of align us to reach that, right? To reach our highest potential. And products can help us be consistent with our actual self. Like, hey, you know what?
God bless.
Bless you.
Autism.
You say our actual selves, we know who we are, we know our limitations and thresholds, and there's some products that kind of satisfy that. We don't need to do all that extra stuff, right? And then we got impression management, means that we work to manage what others think of us. So it means we're constantly concerned. We're constantly concerned what other people think about us, right? As human beings. We're social creatures, so we have to gather in groups and interact with people, and sometimes we get negative feedback. Sometimes we get positive feedback, right? So we're trying to play role management. Like, oh man, why did I receive that negative feedback? What do I need to change? Like, let me look my best for this interview. Let me look my best for this party, this arrangement, this engagement, et cetera, right? So we're trying to manage the impression that we give to others. And we can market to that as well. And then we have the looking glass self, this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, where we start to think that we can prophesize our future to a degree. Which kind of make even negative. We could say, hey, we have low expectations of ourselves, I'm not gonna really try that much. It confirms my prophecy, that it wasn't gonna do much in the first place, right? Social comparison, self-construal, right? Social compare, we always referencing ourselves to other, right? The person tries to evaluate their appearance by comparing it to the people depicted in these artificial images, i.e. social media. We go on social media, everybody on Instagram is living the greatest life of all time. Everybody looks perfect, they airbrush and modify the images. They use AI to create a fake background, right? They use all this stuff, and that has an impact on our comparison. We're like, oh, this person's doing this and this person's doing that, right? It can cause a lot of issues. Who finds themselves comparing themselves to others via social media or the internet? In what way?
I just feel like sometimes like I see how like some people dress or like the way they do their makeup. I'm like, oh, I wanna pop out. Like I wanna look like not like that person, but like I wanna have some sort of similarities in that, you know, because you can see how certain ways that it gravitates your attention. So you know, that's just how.
Is it for people that maybe say have similar features as you, or is it someone like just be a
I
random
would say
person?
like similar features, like sometimes like if they style their hair a certain way, sometimes my hair is hard to style. So like I wanna do something similar to that, as well as like, you know, body type, like the way that they dress their body. You know, I wanna fit words. I wanna fit into that way of like, okay, like they have a pretty good style, I like it. I wanna, you know, get some inspiration.
Okay, that's all.
I was gonna say like some people online who like look so much healthier than me, this, that, just look at that and compare your lifestyle there.
Is it ever in a negative way? Where like I'm comparing it, and let's say if it's about health and fitness, right? We're looking at everybody who on this new kick, right? And then you hear about the new thing and it make you lose weight and make you tone and blah blah blah. Is it ever in a negative way to be like, oh man, look at my life?
That's mostly what it is.
Okay. Right? You're like, hey, it can be healthy or it can be unhealthy, but usually we do compare ourselves, right? Even good thing for athletes, right? You might be comparing yourself to, I don't know, something. There you go, right? You compare yourself to a great footballer, right? Yeah, because they say, hey, we do need a reference point. Usually in our mind, we need a base of reference, a frame of reference for anything. Like, hey, you want to be a great fighter? You might think of a Mike Tyson or something like that. A great bodybuilder, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Someone, right? A great actor, actress, etc. You're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's crazy to me how much like the internet has changed how we view ourselves, and like how our emotions are like in real life, because in reality, like I'm betting like we'll say like 50 to 70% of these people are not that happy, they're not that healthy, and they're actually like very insecure, but they put on this perception to like make themselves feel better because everyone's gonna view them a certain way, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, honestly,
And so,
It's not
yeah, you
true.
hit the nail on the head with the word perception. Is that all we could do is perceive what we see? We got no clue what these people's lives really are, right? They could be in that
they
case.
should be homeless.
Yeah, so we perceive our perception. Really, we perceive our own sort of identity. We don't walk around with a mirror looking at how we look. We just usually give responses and feedback, right? Like, hey, how we feel is usually about what the world tells us how we feel. So we have some sort of perception about ourselves. Self-construal, the degree to which we think of ourselves as independent from others versus feeling interdependent with them, right? So how sort of exclusive we are towards others, or how dependent we are towards others, right? So some people do want to feel affiliated with groups. They do want to have dependency on a group, a category of people who may be similar to them to some degree. They feel it's a support system. Others not so much. Others may have some sort of rogue identity, rogue mentality. They just find being independent self. We say, hey, there's collectivistic and individualistic societies. So in, say, collectivistic societies, you get more value and worth if you conform more to the group. If you try to stand out, you probably feel less valuable within that group, right? Because it's about the group support system, not about you. Here in America, we love independent. We want to just, it's all about us, right? It's all, you want to be a unique, very unique version of you, right? You don't need the group at all. You're bigger than the group or something. Self-consciousness, right? We're just talking about this, right? We talked about consciousness is an awareness, a fixed attention of time. Consciousness is not a stream, but it's what we call states of consciousness. You are unconscious maybe under 4 circumstances. One is death, as far as we know. 2 is anesthesia, which means that you do not have dreams. Dreams will indicate that you are thinking, right? There's some thinking activity in the brain. Anesthesia, you wake up, hey, what'd you dream? You saw nothing, you don't remember anything, you saw nothing. The other part is a coma. Hey, what do you remember from there? Nothing. Right? You weren't thinking. And the last part would be sleep. The first 3 stages of sleep, not the final stage where you dream. When we say a dream is activity, thinking activity.
Is that REM sleep?
REM sleep, right? So we, consciousness, we say, hey, doesn't involve, consciousness involves thinking. It involves, I think, therefore I am. I know I'm alive because I think, right? But that's still very limited. It's not a stream, but it's a state of consciousness. And so think about that. When we say states of consciousness, it's every 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Hey, I'm hungry. I'm bored right now. Ooh, I need attention. I'm stimulated. It's hot. It's cold. Right? Everybody, it's hot, it's cold. How hot? It's the hotness of hot. It's the coldness of cold. How cold? Right? So we say states of consciousness is very, it goes every, 3 seconds, whatever, right? Pay attention, you don't pay attention, you're busy, you're not busy, you're cold, you're hot. It transfers all the time. But public self-consciousness. Who struggles with this? There's self-consciousness in public forums. And you come up and talk in front of the class and give a speech or presentation. Where is your mind when this happens? Tim?
Usually, it's there, but it's kind of rushing through a bunch of thoughts, trying to find the right one. Even when I know, like, I've got this thing to present, but my mind's thinking about kind of the idea that everyone else is judging me, usually for taking too long. And in the past, this has led me to have presentations go way too short.
Alright, so you're like, hey, you know what, I have the material to present, so I probably should have consciousness of the material, fixed attention towards what I need to present. On the other hand, there's this whole dimension of there's people looking at me as I present. And what are they gonna think about me? Think I'm unprepared, I didn't do it right, it didn't make sense, it sounds stupid, right, et cetera, right? We don't think we know what we're talking about. And you're like, well, actually, that goes back to self-concept. Something has occurred along the journey, right? Something has happened to kind of give us a more emphasis of everybody else except us, ourselves, right? Because truly, if we're immersed in ourselves when we give a speech or talk in front of people, nothing else matters. You can focus on your thoughts, right? And even beyond focusing on your thoughts, you could be comfortable. You could, yeah, I'll turn my back on you while I'm giving a presentation. I'll tie my shoe. I'll make a random joke. I will gather my thoughts and ideas as they come to me, right? But that's comfortable. You would have to come up with a ton of material beyond just the presentation itself. But if you're focused on the concern of other people, remember we say you're deviating between, attention. Give attention back to the content. Oh, back to the people. The people seem bored. The people seem tired. Right? But it happens to all of us. Make no mistake about it. We're all not built for public speaking. Even if we know the material, great. Public speaking skills and confidence, it takes hundreds of times of doing it, right? So some people are great at it, others are not. But the people who are good at it, I will say they probably have a very strong self-concept, but more importantly, they probably don't care. So think of like a Barack Obama, right? One of the greatest public speakers of all time, but extremely confident in his thoughts in speaking. Even to the point where Barack Obama would give that pause, like, Michelle and I, right? He gives that up. Even Trump, you say, well, Trump's pretty good at it too. Why? Because he doesn't care. That's why. Right? Be like, that's effective. If you don't care, you're not really pandering to the audience. You're just kind of doing what you do. Right? So it works in different ways, but not everybody has it. Even if you're a scholar, you may not just be good at speaking. There's a ton of professors, I've had in all my academic career, we just suck, right? We're boring, right? Okay, so public self-consciousness. You were gonna say something about public self-consciousness. Do you struggle?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like it depends on whatever has gone on in that year, or the people in the class, or whatever. Because last semester, all of my classes were presentation classes, and that stressed me out a lot. Especially when your class, when we would be in groups, and you'd be like, okay, guys, now say something. I'm like, hope someone in my group says something. But then, going up, it's so different going up in front of the class instead of just talking to the class like this, and
Is it more difficult coming up here?
Yeah.
Than just talking to your group?
Yeah. I just
It's like
think,
you're in a spotlight.
Yeah, you're in the spot.
you're being looked at differently. This time you're being judged. It's not like we're in a comfortable setting,
Yeah.
we're chilling.
Because remember we said consciousness is about selective attention or fixed attention. In a group setting, there's no fixed attention. Even if I call them, right? People are still doing something else, right? They're listening to you.
So now you standing
Yeah,
up
when you
there,
stand up here,
you
people
gotta
like,
look at
oh
you
man,
and
look what you wearing, right?
Look what you're wearing, look what
You got on, blah, blah, blah. They're thinking of your voice. And, what it is people are trying to evaluate. So say the human beings, we try to naturally evaluate stereotype, evaluate people, right? I don't know if this doesn't mean it's bad or it's good. It's just something that we all do. We want information and we'll force it, even if we make up false information about people. Hence why we stereotype people, right? We think we know them because we want to force information.
I was gonna say, you notice the little things when you're like in front of the class, like facial expressions, when
Yeah.
the professor's taking notes,
Yeah.
who's doing what, and then you question like, do I actually know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What I should include versus what I shouldn't include. Then it's like, if you got time, am I on time? Am I behind time?
Yeah.
And
It's a
then-
lot, right? Because it's kind of a, you know, think of being a professor, it's actually a little bit of theater. It's a little bit of a theatrical play. You got timing, you got stuff to talk about, you gotta be engaged, you know, keep it interesting, put it in a way everybody can understand it. It is a role. And even if you come up here as a student to talk to, you know, you're kind of playing a different role, different perspective of the classroom as well too, right? The malleable, well, self-monitors, things that we use to self-monitor. Can you think of something to use to monitor yourself? Some people talk to themselves. I oftentimes talk to myself, right? I'll be like, man, why did I do that? Right? And then I'll be like, I'll try to figure out why I did that. Like for real, I'll try to think like, man, that was bad, why did I do that? And I'll try to like argue with myself, right? See who wins.
I feel like I was so like conscious, like too conscious of like myself in my classes. Like last semester, I would be like, if I take out this water bottle, like is everybody gonna look at me when I take a sip of this water bottle? Is everybody gonna look at me?
They're gonna hear me swallow and
Yeah,
chew,
and put
chew
my
my
water bottle
Cheetos. But is there anything that you use to kind of monitor your own behavior or your own self?
I mean, I watch when I'm running,
Okay, so you look at maybe your steps,
heart rate.
productivity.
Yeah.
It could maybe tell you a lot about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
man, I was lazy today or something, right?
Yeah.
Or you like my heart rate, you're like, man, might be stressed out. Like, why is my heart rate so high more than usual or something? Anything else that you use to monitor yourself? All right, and the malleable self. Each of us is really several different people. We are several different people. Which means like, hey, we change when we come in an environment. Your student self, and if I saw you out at a bar or something else, you might be a totally different person, right? If I saw you out on the street somewhere, right, you might be a totally different person. Like, hey man, put that AK away. What are you doing out here on the street?
Hey, kid.
Just
What is that?
that.
What?
But no, we'd be different people, right? Even I'd probably be a different sort of person, probably a little more goofy outside of class. So each of us is really several different people. And next, role identities. Do you know your lines? The dramaturgical perspective on consumer behavior views people as actors who play different roles. Right? So it says marketers, we do want to view consumers as people trying to be something. Trying to be their ideal self, or try to be more close to their actual self. How do we fulfill that need for them, right? We said self has different components of role identities, and some of these are active at any given time. Then we have symbolic interactionism. Relationships play a large part to form themselves, which means that we have to form relationships with customers. What is a brand, company, or product that you could think of that you have an actual relationship with? A strong relationship with, as a matter of fact. Yeah, like a relationship. And if so, how is their relationship?
Chick-fil-A.
In what way?
I'm just kidding. It's really good. I like eating it, but probably eat like once a week.
Yeah, some people may have a strong relationship with Chick-fil-A. They know that Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays, right? They may like that. Like, oh man, this is a good principled, ethical company. I like my food. You know, you share the same viewpoints as I do or something, right? Can you think of a company, brand, or product that has like a symbolic relationship with you? That helps you satisfy your sort of needs to express yourself?
Spotify, Apple Music, I feel like
Yeah,
everybody,
excellent.
like everybody can say that.
Think about your Spotify. If I look through all of your Spotify, you're like, oh, this is the type of music you like, right?
Ooh.
It would tell me a lot about you. You're like, oh man, I could get some real deep insight into what you think is soulful, what you think is, you know, has good melody and tone, what kind of sounds you like, right? If you like pumped up music, some people are like, man, I like amped up music. I need some energy. Some people are somber music. Even for myself, which is weird, you know, kind of like I'm a 90s kind of kid, right? Teenager. So I'm like, I'm still listening to R&B, 90s R&B and hip hop, bless you, like working out. Some of it is somber music, like, why are you listening to that sad song working out? That don't make no sense, right? But for my era, I just kind of like, even working out, I might listen to some soft sort of music. Okay, and then creating ourselves as we consume, self-image congruence models. We choose products when attributes matches ourselves, right? We all got different sort of ethics, principles, things that we abide by, and we kind of buy according to those sort of self-imaging consistent product perceptions. Self-signaling, a message to ourselves that our choices sync with how we want to think about ourselves. Here they're giving an example of some individuals who put in hablamos en español, right? We speak Spanish, right? To say that maybe these individuals, they're showing the Spanish-speaking countries, show that they are more of a coalition, more of a group that identify with Spanish-speaking people. Right? All right, here's our first reflection questions that we'll do in our groups. Hey, advertising can utilize the consumer's self-esteem in promoting the product by offering the product as a remedy to low self-esteem. Self-esteem advertising, products provide a remedy to low self-esteem. How effective do you think this form of advertising is? So maybe in your groups, think of some more sort of self-esteem boosting products, companies, brands, right? And how effective you think that advertising is. Can you think of some form of advertising that they've promoted out there to help boost that self-esteem? I give you about 3-4 minutes with your groups to talk about it.
Oh my God. Something probably would be self-esteem. Like the entrepreneurs. Like people breathing cologne.
I think it's really effective because you can
Oh, shit.
like when you start self-esteem, it's like it's this like.
We gotta think of brands.
And it also, it very much depends on what you're targeting, because if you write it,
Wait, I forgot what else did I say? I literally, what else did I say? Oh, what else did I say? Cologne.
yeah, there's, it might be even more ones that try to use.
Yeah. And like, you could even do like super subtle, like, if we, you can even like hear people that are
Actually,
like
the
showing
one
you
that I
like,
believe a lot is like
being
aging,
so happy
like
and stuff
cream.
and feeling great.
You know what I'm
Like,
talking about?
like, I feel like it
Yeah,
gets
anti-aging cream.
Yeah.
like the way adults, it's kind of like this.
What I always think of is the drug commercials where
That's how it's supposed to
the people are all sad and depressed, so they get whatever miracle
Colin?
they're out, flowers, they're enjoying life.
Ooh.
But it's probably effective.
Deodorant. Perspiration.
Definitely works.
What is it?
Advertise like, you're not supposed to advertise the product, you're supposed to advertise like.
If you want to offer, if you want to partner, I'll take my hand off.
Anyone else want any more cookies?
Actually, wants some too.
Alright, what are we thinking? Let's start over here.
We generally said that it's pretty effective, like regardless of the age group. You can do it subtly, you can do it more blatantly, but like people just generally instinctually will want to make themselves better with things. So targeting things that they might be insecure about, that's effectively just.
Okay. Is there any like product, brand, company that you could think of that?
I thought of like the drug commercials that you see on TV where it shows off these people's lives. It starts off, it's all bad, it's dark, it's dreary, and they get this miracle drug, and all of a sudden, life is perfect, the sun is shining, they're in the flowers, they're with their family, they're walking the dog.
Yeah. Right, we think of, drug advertising, right, pharmaceutical advertising. Hey, it starts off with aches and ailments and very dark sort of experiences, then it ends off with finally take the drug and everything changes, right? The sun is out, there's flowers, the dog is licking on you, et cetera, et cetera. I actually thought of something too, I was like, erectile dysfunction, sexual enhancement, sexual performance, that's big time now, even on social media, right? Like, and once again, that has to do with it could potentially have to do with self-esteem. Even if we're talking about young men, because they're kind of promoting it to young men, which is kind of weird to think about, right? But I don't think that was an issue 20 years ago, right? But it's, you can say, hey, maybe it's very effective because they're selling a lot of it. Now it's everywhere, in the gas stations, at the corner store, it's everywhere. So obviously it works, right? But then you think like, well, you're a young man, why do you need it? But the advertising says, hey, we could boost your confidence, give you some self-esteem, right? Feel confident with yourself. Over here.
You said something similar to that, but the product that I was thinking is like skincare products.
Mhm.
Because, for any, skin issues you may have, like they kind of correlate to that. And also you can, it's like taking care of your skin, it's like a self-boost in confidence.
Yeah, I think of big time, like, for young people or adolescents, like who, they have blackheads, really oily skin, acne, imperfections, discoloration of the skin, things like that, right? You say, hey, you can have that confidence by eliminating your blemishes, getting rid of anything that's viewed as an imperfection of your skin. What about here?
Well, we said a lot of different things. I said like cologne and like perfume ads, like just look at this one. Or like, as well as like this one they be doing too much of. They do, and like perspiration, like, what is it, deodorant?
Deodorant.
Deodorants. What, and she said makeup, jewelry, right? Clothes.
Shampoo.
Shampoo, she said shampoo.
Alright, shampoo, jewelry, deodorant, cologne, right? We say, hey, things that can add some value to maybe some things we like. Maybe we're not the most good looking person.
But
We
if
can
you
smell the
good,
best, right?
smell that makeup.
Maybe we're not the most wealthiest person, but we can still look good with some clothes, some nice jewelry, right? We can boost our confidence about things we actually maybe lack in. And even if we're talking, shampoo and all that, we could maybe have the best hair. Maybe we don't have the greatest other features, right? There's something always there that we can accentuate to provide value to us to some degree.
I said Head and Shoulders shampoo, and also like Old Spice does it with like men. Like, I don't know if you've seen that commercial, but like it'll be like the man using the body wash and lotion or regardless, and then like the ladies will be like smelling him. So maybe that can like influence people to be like, come use Old Spice, you might get some ladies.
Let me see if I can find the Old Spice commercial. I know some of them that you're talking about.
that's funny.
That was pretty good. Alright, so we see that, hey, you know what, even things like deodorant can help us build our self-esteem. Alright, okay, next we're gonna learn how consumption choices are expressions of our identities and extensions of ourselves. Here's our extended selves, the levels of an extended self. So we have ourselves as an individual, we say, well, self-concept, who are we? Just to ourselves. Next we got family. Who are we to our family? Are we a leader? Are we a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, a nephew, niece? Are we the youngest? Are we the oldest? Are we more responsible? Are we immature? Who are we in our family dynamic? Next, who are we to our community? Do we contribute? Are we a leech to the community? Do we not contribute? How do we help our community, right? Some people love to help the community. Some people love this sort of altruistic viewpoint, like they wish to do good. And you have to kind of question, like, hey, why do you wish to do so much good? Right? Is it organic? Is it manufactured? Are you just playing a role? Do you want to be perceived as a good person? Some people could be wanting to just be perceived as a good person. And then we have our groups, right? The larger group. Who are we to our societies? Who are we to our particular culture? Right? How do we go about extending ourselves in that way? And then we'll summarize how consumers are finding new ways to express identity via their consumption choices. What does this ad about? What do you get from this advertisement right here?
She's in love with the shoe.
Yeah, in love with a shoe, right? Kissing the shoe, in love with a vibrant shoe. Shoe is almost same color as her lipstick, right? They're kind of giving her a sort of hue of the shoe, right? And the background kind of matches as well too. Some new ways to express identity. Compensatory consumption, self-concept clarity, symbolic self-completion, anti-consumption as defined. So some people love to go on Shein and Temu, and they love to buy just a ton of stuff, right, to compensate for their self-concept, to kind of instill who they think they are by the items that they buy. TikTok shop, Shein, Temu, right, kind of an over-purchase for the brand. And then some individuals are anti-consumption and self-defining. They're like, hey, they're minimalists. They're on purpose, right? Think like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had the same clothing.
Who's that? Is he Amazon?
Apple.
Oh, okay.
Right? Some people be like, hey, I'm just gonna have a look. My look defines who I am, and that's my look. It could be a turtleneck and jeans like Steve Jobs had. Why? He's like, I'll be remembered as that, instead of having a bunch of cool outfits, right? Einstein was kind of the same way. I think he had all matching suits, so he didn't have to decide on what to wear in the morning, right? Some people like to shop maybe second-hand only. They don't like to participate in the consumerist mentality with, commercial products. So some people are anti-consumption. Embodied cognition. So we got power posing, enclothed cognition. Is it true that you are what you wear? Is this true? Are you what you wear? Can I look at each one of you now and get some sort of insight into your identity? Yes?
I think it depends on how you wear your clothes and how confident you are. Because if you are what you wear, you let your clothes define, like, wear you, if that makes sense. But if you I feel like I see some people and I can see they're yeah, they put those clothes on today. But some people are just like, I got dressed, but I'm confident, and so I'm wearing my clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's I like how you put that, and they're actually wearing the clothes. The clothes make sense for how they're sort of embodying their confidence with what they're wearing. And other people are like, oh, it seems a little off, right? It seems kind of weird. Who could tell me what your clothing today says about you? About any part of your personality, about any part of your self-concept? Yes.
I mean, like, athletic wear. I only do this, now that I think about it, when I have like practices. Cause like, on the weekends I don't wear like athletic gear.
What do you wear on weekends?
I'm more like dressed up, or like when I'm going out, I'm more like dressed up.
Okay, but you say during the week is about taking care of business, right?
Yeah.
So taking care of business, like, yeah, I'm casual and comfortable when I gotta take care of business now, because it's about school and stuff like that, right? About being comfortable. You still probably wanna express yourself, right? You
Yeah.
got cool shoes, a cool hoodie, you know, you still wanna express yourself, but maybe a different you, might get a different you on the weekends.
Yeah.
Hey, look, anyone else?
More calm.
What is what you're wearing to tell me? Yes.
My shirt is a King Korea Chicago shirt that I think I got my first year here, and so I've worn it out a bunch.
Yeah. So you say, hey, you know what? Could we say that you're functional? You're about functionality more so than anything else?
Yeah.
Alright, so Tim's like, hey, you know what? I squeeze all the juice out of the lemon for that shirt. I got way more than what I paid for, right? I got what I needed out of it. Functionality. Anyone else?
I just wear these for comfort. Like, I wanted to wear sweatpants, but the ones I wanted to wear were dirty, so I just was like, I guess we'll throw off the jeans today.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of what's going on.
In the closet.
But here we are what we wear. Think about it, we have uniforms. Doctor, this is how physicians dress, right? Police officers identify as a self-concept. They wear uniform. Military people wear uniform. Professors might kind of dress like professors, right? They kind of vintagey kind of look or something like that, right? Students dress like students. You're a student, so you want to be comfortable, and that's probably the most thing you're concerned about. Yeah, so we are what we were to a degree. And then our digital selves, right? Wearable computing and virtual makeovers. Right now with AI, we say, hey, we really can kind of adapt, you know, which is funny to me. I'm like, one of the funniest things that I see on the internet now is like somebody have an AI photo that they upload, and then people actually comment and like, man, you look so great. I'm like, that's not them. Like, it'd be them like in a safari, like a fake video photo in a safari riding an elephant. And there'll be little comments, people are like, oh wow, that's so awesome, you look so great. I'm like, these people know that these are artificial images, but how have they?
Maybe it's the grandmas and the grandpas on the internet.
No, sometimes from young people, it's almost just like a confidence booster for the person. It's almost like just supporting them just because, right? Like if it's your friend, oh my God, you look so wonderful, and it's fake photo.
So everybody believes it.
Yeah. So we have our digital self. So think about this. Does your digital self reflect your real self?
Yes, 100%.
You get.
You get what you get.
Yeah. You get what.
What do you think? Do you think your digital footprint reflects who you truly are as a
Yes.
person?
Probably a little more free side.
100%.
Anyone here that? Yes.
You kind of portray whatever you want on there. You develop a completely different psyche with the stuff that you like. You know,
You don't have to.
guess that could be you, but.
Yeah, or you could be just portraying your ideal self, right? Like, I'm not there yet, but
Yeah,
I can portray
like
that.
if I only like Bugattis and Rollies, like, trust me guys, I did not have Bugattis or Rollies.
Right, you think about it, people do rent the fake, rent the Bugattis, rent the Ferraris, and try to pawn it off as this theirs and stuff like that, right? Alright, and then last one, before we get out of here, real quick. For reflection, constructive Consumption by a favorite friend, family member, or classmate. Okay. You know what, I have to do that, but I want you to think of one thing. Name an item that you have in your possession of any kind that truly defines who you are as a person. What is something you can think of? You're like, this captures the essence of me. Headphones. So you're a headphone
Yeah,
person.
I need my music.
You need your music. Right, okay.
Like if
Well,
I left out without it, I would turn around and go get it.
yeah, like you will feel inadequate without it, right? Anyone else can think of something? An item that truly defines who you are as a
My
person.
perfume.
Perfume.
I put on a lot of perfume.
Alright.
I make sure people
I got these, sunglasses, I like being outside, like playing sports outside, like doing the seats outside, so.
So the sunglasses. Anyone else? Yes.
I have this cinema roll keychain. I have a lot of my friends tell me like I have the same personality.
That's that, right? Yeah.
So, yeah.
It defines who you are. Alright. Alright, excellent everyone. Thank you for today. I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.